One of the positives of the discussion of the impact of AI on HE practices is the increased willingness to consider alternative forms of assessment. Our exploratory research here at the Centre for Academic English in Manchester University into one such form of alternative assessment is what I will outline in this short talk. Getting students to read journal articles and writing critical reviews is a common form of assessment. They allow us to assess lower level learning objectives, for example, the ability to understand the material, to differentiate between main and subsidiary points, and to identify the opinion of the author, but also allow us to assess higher level ones, such as the ability to critique, argue and defend opinions. All in all, I believe that critical reviews are a valuable assessment tool and one worthy of continuing with. However, critical reviews are an obvious example of where AI might be used to partially or fully generate a student submission. ChatGPT already does a reasonable job of constructing a response that follows the conventions expected for such a review, and often is able to come up with valid strengths and weaknesses of particular articles. Yes, what it produces is far from perfect, but I think few of us would doubt that it's only going to get better and better over the next 12 months, 18 months or so. Critical reviews are also time consuming, both for the student and for the tutor, which unfortunately results generally in students being asked to critically review no more than 1 or 2 texts per course. All of these things make critical reviews a prime candidate for alternative assessment methods. And this exploratory research looks at ways in which ChatGPT could be used to reduce the workload and allow greater engagement with a wider range of texts. In the first phase of the trial, students were assigned a text and then given 4 AI-generated critical reviews of that particular text. All of the AI-generated critical reviews adhered to the conventions of the genre, but say things that are either very or partially suspect. The students were asked to select the one that they felt was the best of the bunch. That is, none of them are brilliant, but if you had to choose one of them, then which of the 4 would you think was better than the others? They were then asked to annotate the reviews, showing parts of each of the reviews that they felt supported their decision in the one that they'd said was best. So they might, for example, choose something from a review that they hadn't chosen as the best, but that they thought was a good thing for ChatGPT to have said, as shown in this particular annotation by the student. Or they may have chosen something from another of the critical reviews which they disagreed with and thought that, that's not an appropriate thing to have gone into the critical review. On submission of the annotations, the students then participated in a mini-viva, or a kind of mini-viva, in which they were quizzed on their selection. So why did you choose, review A and not review B, C and D? And were quizzed on the highlighting the annotations that they had done and asked why they thought that they were in support, or they were valid sources of evidence to support their decision, or they were things that ChatGPT had done wrong. The feedback from the students and the tutors, whose group of students we ran this particular initial trial on, has so far been generally good, but there are obviously things which we have yet to attempt. And so over the next few weeks, we will be attempting to conduct some form of validation of the task. We've kind of done it the wrong way around. Ordinarily, of course, you would start with identifying the constructs that you wanted to assess, and then develop an assessment that you felt was capable of measuring those constructs in some way. Of course, we've done it the opposite way around, and I suppose that's the nature of exploratory research. We've just kind of investigated what could we do without really thinking exactly what it is we want to be assessing. So this validation process will attempt to see what exactly is being tested and whether or not these what it is that we are testing aligns with the course that we are hoping to include this form of assessment in, and whether it aligns with the ILOs that have been set out for that particular course. We'll also be looking at whether it is possible to cut out the mini viva, because obviously the mini viva is quite resource intensive, and we're looking at whether it's possible to cut that out and just use the annotations alone to collect sufficient data that might be able to make us capable of making a decision about the student's performance on the task. However, the mini viva part and the use of AI to lessen the load of tutors in conducting the mini viva for this task is actually my main focus for the next phase of the research. The hope is to gain access to the OpenAI Researcher Access Programme to investigate the possibility of using ChatGPT to help scaffold the mini viva. The hope is that we can create a system that works in the background or over the top of ChatGPT, so that when the student asks for the reviews to be generated, ChatGPT will simultaneously generate a list of weaknesses for each review. This list of weaknesses would be available to the tutor only, and would be presented as a list of questions to ask the students. A simplified example is shown here. Now, this is obviously no trivial task, since, besides many other reasons, ChatGPT and other AI systems are not conscious of what is right and what is wrong. But the fact that ChatGPT can produce different answers from essentially the same prompt, and that it can identify the differences between one response and another, suggests that a system could be written that analyzes the probability that a statement generated by the AI in a particular review is appropriate. It is this that the next phase will attempt to produce. Finally, one reason for keeping the mini viva element in the assessment, and one glimpse of what a mini viva assistant might produce, can be gained by asking ChatGPT to critically review its own critical reviews, as I did here. In this example, it's actually done a pretty damn good job of identifying the main issues with its initial review of the article. It's not usually so good, and a reliable, trustworthy version of this is what our mini viva assistant program will hopefully achieve.